Hi everyone, Chris Murray here. I wanted to talk about some things that I see a lot of shops making mistakes with that's costing them a lot of money, keeping them from being able to pay talented employees well, which ultimately leads to losing those talented employees to either other shops or other areas of the bike industry. I think one of the biggest mistakes a lot of shops make is not looking at their real profits on items they're selling. Square footage is very expensive, and a lot of times like bikes, clothing, things like that tend to get sold out at pretty hefty discounts, and it's already relatively low margin stuff to begin with. And I don't think a lot of people take the time to actually factor in what they're paying for the square footage that's holding that product, um, and factoring that into whether or not they made much of a profit on it. So first thing I would do would be look at your real numbers, factor in what you're paying per month for that square footage, and factor that in against your profits and see the real numbers there. I think a lot of people make that mistake, especially with devoting a lot of floor space to clothing. Some people do clothing well in the bike industry, most people don't. So take the time, run the numbers, see if you're actually making a real profit on that. If you're not, look at ways you can better utilize the space. Are you doing great with selling parts and accessories? Stock more there. If you're doing more service, expand your service area. Find where you're making your most profit and devote most of your space to that. Don't waste a bunch of floor space on something you're not making hardly any profit on. Like a lot of times clothing is a good example. I think the most frustrating thing I see from professional mechanics is when they're hating on e-bikes, internal routing, new tech in general, all of these things that are guaranteeing them job security. The more complex a bike becomes, the less the average consumer will want to work on it. If you're online bashing e-bikes all the time, hating on internal routing, complaining about press fit bottom brackets, it just doesn't make sense. You're hating on the very thing that's giving you a job. If things were easy to work on, everyone would do it themselves. The more complex a bike becomes, the more likely people are going to be to use you as a mechanic. So quit hating on stuff that's giving you job security. I see it all the time. It's really frustrating. These things aren't going away. They're projecting, I think, over 100 million e-bike sales in the next couple of years. You should learn how to work on them if you want to have a lot of job security, and just open up a huge revenue source. Internal routing, we know that's not going away. Figure out how to do it. It's not that bad once you learn the tricks. And if you need to bill extra for it, you can adjust your rates. Bikes are different than they were 20 years ago. People don't expect to pay the same amount of money for routing a cable now. Learn electronic shifting, learn hydraulic brakes, learn all these things that are evolving in the bike industry because they're not going away. Another thing I see a lot of, and especially from the older types that have been in the industry for a long time, retail focused shops, things like that, is people getting mad at customers for bringing them stuff they bought online. It's ridiculous to get mad at a customer for buying something online. If you were the customer in another industry, you'd probably want to save a couple $100s on the same exact item too. So happily take their money, charge them for the labor, charge them enough that you can make a profit and that you feel good about it, and then everybody wins. You don't want to throw away labor dollars because of some petty insecurities and egotistical stuff. Again, internet's not going away. Doesn't matter how much you complain about it. You can't guilt customers into buying from you. It may work for a little bit, but it's not going to work forever. Internet's just going to get more powerful, but the internet won't be able to fix people's bikes for them. It may give them a little bit of insight on how to do it, but most people won't want to go through the effort to learn. So people that are providing great service are the shops that are going to succeed. You can see it already with how many bike shops are closing versus how many are thriving based on a service focused model or service and retail, but they have a really good service department and do a good job at making their customers feel welcome and excited about the sport. Same thing goes for mail order bikes. If somebody brings you a Canyon, happily take it, build it, charge them labor, and earn a lifelong customer for the service side. Chances are they'll come back for more service work and consumable parts like chains, brake pads, tires, those sort of things. Another thing I think would be very helpful for a lot of shops, especially if your shop focuses on higher end stuff. I see a lot of shops that hire mechanics that don't really know what they're doing, and they just hire a bunch of people that are okay at what they do versus a couple key people that are great at what they do and are able to almost do twice as much work, definitely better quality work, definitely going to give the customer a better experience. I think it makes a lot of sense to hire quality over quantity. A good mechanic, they're going to cost you more and they deserve it. But a good mechanic will also make you a much better profit too. You won't have as many returns on service work. They'll be better about upselling stuff that actually needs to be done because they'll catch issues early. And they're going to make your customer realize that you're the best shop in town. You don't want people that don't know what they're talking about talking with your customers because it reflects on you. So personally, I think it makes a lot of sense to hire a couple really good mechanics or really good salespeople at a higher rate than it is to hire a bunch of people that have no idea what they're doing. I mean, I know we all have to start somewhere, and if you're a big enough shop where you can have an entry-level mechanic that only builds bikes all day, great, but most shops aren't in that position where they can afford to have one person that only knows a very limited amount of stuff. So I would definitely suggest hiring one or two really good people over 3 or 4 mediocre people. I think these few tips would make a big difference for a lot of shops because I see a lot of shops throwing away money, especially in retail, especially with hiring people that aren't very good at what they do, hiring people that are lazy. The bike industry is really difficult, really small margins. There's nothing easy about it. You want to make sure everybody's on their game all the time or as often as is reasonable. You can throw away a lot of money, and I've seen it firsthand by hiring bad people, by complaining about mail order sites. I've picked up a lot of those customers that have had those experiences at other shops. Those customers, they usually won't vocalize it to you, but they'll just quit using you. So just because you didn't hear a negative complaint about certain behaviors and comments and things like that, that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. There's a good chance that that customer just started going somewhere else. I know this because a lot of those customers come to me now. So take good care of your customers. Don't try to make them feel guilty for buying something online. You probably do it in other industries too, so don't be hypocritical. Hire good people, but less of them, and just expect more of them. Personally, as a mechanic, I was always willing to go above and beyond when companies were paying me well and taking good care of me before I started my own thing. And a lot of the lowly paid employees I've seen at other bike shops, they spent most of the day doing virtually nothing. And some of that's a management issue. Some of it is just they don't care and they're only going to do the absolute minimum to keep their job. So it's best not to even hire them in the first place. Or if you hire them and see that they're that type of a person or employee, get rid of them and hire somebody better. It's going to cost you a little bit more up front, but it'll definitely pay for itself in the end. Well, I hope these tips were helpful to you. If they were, go ahead and click the subscribe button down below. It definitely helps me out, and it'll let you see more content we have coming in the future. Again, we're just getting started with this channel, so a lot of good stuff to come. And I appreciate you taking the time to watch. Have a good one.